What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be giving my review of Fortnite Chapter 5 Season 3. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it entertaining or informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below what you think of Season 3 and what you would rate this season out of 10. Also, this video is going to be entirely my opinion on things. That's why it's my review. I've made these videos in the past and people will like give a timestamp and be like, this is your opinion. And it's like 100% that's why it's my review. Also, my opinion of this season is not very high, but I'm going to try to not be like too, overly negative or just bash the game. I do think there is a lot of positives and a lot of pros to this season and a lot of things it did well. But let's just get right into it. The first thing we're going to talk about is going to be the launch of Season 3 because, this is probably one of the most controversial season launches of all time. Because cars were very overpowered and very impactful on the game. It wasn't just the boss cars, even the regular cars when you got mods on them were incredibly good. And at the start of the season, it felt like, not like you had to use cars to win, but most people were going to use cars to win. And that made it to where you had very few fights that felt like Fortnite. And that's why I was not a big fan of this. I am someone who is just naturally very biased against like vehicular weapons and shooters. Even going back to like Halo 3 in 2007, I always hated the like maps with like a bunch of vehicles. Or Battlefield. Battlefield 4 is one of my favorite games ever. Like top 3 for me is probably Fortnite, Black Ops 2, and Battlefield 4. I really enjoyed that game, but I preferred the smaller to medium sized maps, maybe maps that had like APCs. Not ones that had like a bunch of tanks. Like Golmud Railway, I think, had like an absurd amount of tanks. So I'm someone who just naturally doesn't like weaponized vehicles in games, and so like the launch of this season is like as bad as it could get for me. Like it's just not my thing. And so I think the launch of this season was probably my least favorite Fortnite season of all time. Like it's rivaling Season X there. And it was very controversial. Like discussion about this online, I feel like was very heated because you had a lot of people who really loved this season and you had a lot of people who really hated it. I don't like the way this happened though. Like the discussion online of this season was framed as like casual players loving the season and like sweats who take the game way too seriously hating the season. And as someone who reads a lot of comments online about the game, I don't think that's entirely true. Like, if there's anybody in the comments, y'all can vouch for this. Like, there's a lot of casual players who want to play Fortnite as Fortnite. They don't want to play Car Royale. So, like, I feel like the framing that anybody who disliked the launch of the season is just taking the game way too seriously is just not true. Personally, to me, it seems like there's a lot of people who aren't very good at Fortnite in its like core sense, and so when the vehicles came out and were really overpowered and they could finally get kills and wins, they loved it. But like, yeah, I didn't like the launch of this season at all, and I'm sure there's a lot of you who did not as well. And that's why I think this season had the lowest player count for opening weekend since Epic has been like publicly displaying player counts. And if casual players overwhelmingly loved the season and had a great time playing, it wouldn't have an incredibly low player count, Also, that's the launch of this season, I think, was also kind of a lot of times framed as like it's good because it's different and there's a lot of change. And I'm someone who just personally doesn't agree with that. I get that mindset, but like what I want in a new Fortnite season is I want to play Fortnite with like new POIs and new weapons. I want like 80% of the game to remain the same. I still want to be playing Fortnite, but playing it in slightly different ways or in different areas. When the launch of this season felt like an entirely different game, and some people really liked that other game and some people didn't. But I feel like just praising any change is good because it's changed, I don't think is very good. And if something is a series, like, I just don't think that makes very much sense. So the launch of the season was not it. It did end up getting a lot better, though, because the cars got nerfed, and then we got more counters added. One of the first things we got was boogie bombs, and I don't think this was good at all. I think boogies are very negative for the game and probably should never be in the game, at least for zero build. I don't know if Fortnite said this or it just became the assumption that like boogies were added until they could add EMPs because there was some sort of bug. But I feel like that's just a failure on Epic Games' part. Like EMPs, I feel like, are the best counter to cars. and what would have made the most sense to have in the game. Whatever the bug was should have been ironed out and fixed before the season launched. But eventually they added EMPs and removed boogie bombs, and I think that's where the season got a lot better, because you had something that was just a direct counter to the cars. You throw it, you hit the car. That car is not operational anymore. It would carry its momentum forward. But I think EMPs were very good. And then we also had the Boombolt crossbow, which I think was also a really solid counter. Once they made it to where the boss cars didn't auto regen health. When the boss cars auto regen health, it's not like it would just always out heal the bow, but it made it more inconvenient to like counter the car with the bow. So I think that nerfing the cars was a universally good thing, and adding counters to the cars was a universally good thing. And I feel like this is where the balance should have been at the start. Whereas like cars are still decent in the game. There is this, again, discussion online from people who really liked this season that Fortnite nerfed cars into the ground and just completely ruined the season and made it pointless. I don't think that's true at all. And the kind of proof I have for that is, how many of you guys are still carrying some sort of item to counter cars after the nerfs? I know I am, and pretty much everybody I know who plays the game, even after the cars got nerfed, was still carrying some item to counter them. And if you only have 5 inventory slots and you're dedicating one of those 5 inventory slots to counter something, that something is not irrelevant and was not nerfed into the ground. Like, I feel like the car nerfs went from taking a season that was like heavy emphasis on cars, and if you wanted to do well, you were probably going to take advantage of cars, to making the cars a still powerful thing in the game that you can take advantage of, but not something that's just an automatic win or an automatic like heavy favor in the fight. So I think the car nerfs was very good. It made the game a lot more enjoyable. This is how it should have always been, and acting like it just got ruined, I think, again, just kind of goes back to what I was saying, where a lot of people that liked the launch of the season just liked it because it was finally like easy for them to get eliminations and get wins. Like, it's just, yeah. However, this good time in the game didn't last very long, I think, because eventually we got the Magneto, which was another very overpowered, very annoying item that just, again, made it feel like you weren't playing Fortnite. In my opinion, like for me, the Magneto gauntlets are probably the second most annoying thing to ever be in the game, behind the mechs, and then I guess behind, like, I guess it'd be third behind the cars at the launch of this season. But like, I really was not a fan of the Magneto existing. It was very powerful, very easy to use, because people could just shockwave or glove up and then shoot down with this, and just shooting down with an area of effect weapon that hits for like 90, and then also like once you hit someone just ruins their momentum and makes them move slow. I think it's very overpowered, and it was just not enjoyable to play against at all. Before this got added, and maybe even shortly after it got added, like before people really started catching on and using it, I think season 3 was probably the most fun I've had in chapter 5. Like, once the cars got nerfed and EMPs were added, and then I think reload came out as well, that kind of like period in time was genuinely the most fun I've had playing Fortnite in chapter 5. Like I said, the launch of this season was one of my least favorite ever, probably my least favorite ever. But once they, you know, nerfed the cars, added some counters, added the reload mode, I was having a lot of fun playing the game, and genuinely I think this was my favorite. That time period was my favorite time in chapter 5. But once the Magneto came out and more people started using it, the game just became significantly less enjoyable, I think. And it, like, like the Magneto feels like a virus to me. Like, I feel like it came out and it was in the game, but not everybody was using it. But as time went on, just more and more people started using it. And then now, like, the final week or two has just been like so dreadful, with like, it feels like every fight is just Magneto, a car user, or someone using the fist melee. Like, it feels like I could play a game, get 15 kills. A lot of them are going to be AI because of how Fortnite is, and then like the other half are just going to be people using this, and then maybe there's like 1 or 2 people that actually like shoot their gun back at you. Like, and that's why I don't really like the vehicles, and why I don't like this, and why I was saying I feel like change isn't just universally a good thing. Because if you're someone who enjoys, you know, more core regular Fortnite, you get very few fights in a game where you're actually playing Fortnite. Like, that's how I feel, at least. Other people might not feel that way and they like this stuff. Like, that's fine. But that genuinely, I feel like I get 1 or 2 fights a game where I'm actually playing the game I want to play. And that is one of the things that really holds this season back, even though, like I said, there was a point where it was my favorite for Chapter 5. For the collab updates we got this season, we got Metallica, the Pirates of the Caribbean, Fall Guys, and then Fallout as well. The Metallica update I thought was just okay. The Ride the Lightning guitar would definitely got annoying when combined with like how much mobility there is in the game and just how many fights already felt like you were just chasing people. I think this was during the time where cars were still good as well. So again, it was just like trying to fight somebody. They're either in a car trying to prevent you from playing the game versus them. They're using nitro gauntlets to try to prevent you from playing the game versus them. Or they're using the Ride the Lightning guitar to try to prevent you from playing the game versus them. It just felt like, you know, again, there was like 2 or 3 fights a game where it wasn't just somebody full running. I did really like the loot island they had for Metallica, though. This was definitely my favorite loot island that they've had in Chapter 5. And the fact that you could turn off licensed audio to not hear music on Loot Island was also a change that I really enjoyed, because I don't like hearing music while playing this game. Like, any of the POIs that play music have been some of my least favorite. Like, it's just sensory overload for me. It's not something I'm a fan of at all. So being able to disable that on the Metallica Island, I really liked, and just playing out the Metallica Loot Island, I thought was a lot more enjoyable than the core Chapter 5 Island or the Crackshot's Cabin one we had in Season 1. So that's good. The Pirates of the Caribbean update, I really don't have too much of an opinion on. Like, it was a fine update. I'm happy we got map changes for it, for sure, because that's something that I look forward to most, and I wish Fortnite would lean in more on map changes when it came to updates and less on just like overpowered items. But the pirate update, I feel like, wasn't that big of a deal. Like, the POI itself was just kind of like not that big, and with the ghost pirate ship item, people would just like completely destroy everything, so it made it kind of weird to land at. I think this is probably the least impactful mini pass update we've had since Fortnite started doing these mini pass updates, but like, that's fine to me. I would rather a collab update be like this than be something like Magneto or like the water bending, or like, you know, something really overpowered. Like, it was nice for the people that enjoy that IP, but it wasn't the end all be all for the time it was in the game. And then the Fall Guys collab was perfect, in my opinion. And I've never played Fall Guys, and it's not perfect in the sense that I loved it or is my favorite thing ever. But again, I think it was something nice for people who enjoy Fall Guys. There's a nice little benefit to doing the obstacle course, and it didn't completely warp or like ruin the game for that period of time like some other collabs have. Like, if you want to do the obstacle course and you're good at that and you can get like the good loot every time, that's nice, but it's not like this is the guaranteed way to win the game, where you get like some magical Fall Guys item that just prevents people from playing Fortnite. Like, it was, you get Fortnite loot from doing a Fall Guys obstacle course. Cool. And then Fallout wasn't as much of an update because it was just in the battle pass, but I'm still going to talk about it because it's one collab I've wanted for a long time. If people would ask me like, what collab would you want? Like, Fortnite doesn't typically collab with things that I would like, so I would always just say Fallout. And I really like the Fallout universe, like Fallout 3 and New Vegas. I really enjoyed playing those games. Brad King, who makes like kind of videos talking about like the Fallout lore and the Fallout universe, is one of my favorite YouTubers. So I was decently excited for this collab. I like the Nuka-Cola item a lot. I feel like it's a much better balanced version of Slurps. And then the laser rifle was just okay, but it wasn't really something I ever wanted to use because I felt like I had to carry a car counter item this season. And to me, the laser rifle wasn't as good at that as something like EMPs or the boom bolt. So like, the Fallout collab was fine. I'm a little disappointed in the skins though, because we just got power armor and then kind of a Vault Boy back bling, I think. What I always wanted, and some people would call this lame, is just Fortnite characters wearing the Fallout jumpsuits and then let us like customize a number on the back. Like, some people would be very disappointed in that because it's just simple and not flashy, and it's just Fortnite characters wearing that outfit. But me personally, when it comes to collabs, that's what I want more than anything. I don't want to play as like a giant Brotherhood of Steel character, or even like the Vault Boy bobblehead with a giant head. I just want Fortnite characters wearing an outfit from that, you know, universe. And I feel like the Vault jumpsuits would have fit a lot for this, but they ended up not doing it. We just got the power armor and then the back bling, I think. So the Fallout collab was okay, but I'm a little disappointed in it just because it is something that I, you know, would have wanted. And so that is kind of the overview for this season. I didn't touch on everything, but those are the things that I thought mattered. Now we're going to get into some of the pros and then the cons, and I'll give my rating. The pros of this season, I think, is that it's very fast-paced. I really enjoyed having the Nitro gauntlets and the Nitro, like, in the game. Like, it made it a lot of fun having unlimited sprint. And the Nitro gauntlets as a mobility item was excellent. The fact that there was a melee component to it and then a lot of people spammed it was definitely annoying, and it contributed to the concept I was talking about before, where it felt like very few fights during the course of the game you were actually playing a Fortnite fight versus somebody, where they're either just magnetoing you in a car or trying to melee you. But I enjoyed it as a mobility item, and how fast paced this season was a very good thing in my opinion. This can be seen as a con though, because when you don't get mobility, like if you're just like not able to find gloves, it was hard for you to play the game versus anybody because they can run away and reset so much and you can't keep up. But I enjoy the faster pace for sure. I think the floor loot was a lot better in this season than previous Chapter 5 seasons. Like, the attachments wise, like the combat AR with any attachments I thought was fine. The Enforcer AR with any attachments I thought was fine. The Thunderburst with pretty much any attachments I thought was fine. Whereas like when you go back to season 1, trying to use like the Striker AR with the 2x or like the Sniper with no sight and carrying those items because you want those items, but in hopes that you can customize them eventually, was kind of annoying, you know? And then season 2 also had this with like the Thermal Warforged AR, and then I believe there's still snipers without a sight in that season as well. At times in season 1 and 2, it definitely felt to me like I would take items that I hate at the moment so that later I can turn them into something that I want to use with the mod bench. And I didn't feel that way that much this season. Like I wasn't just like, oh, my burst is ruined until I can get to a mod bench. But that is how I felt about like the no sight sniper or the 2x striker AR. So, or like the no sight striker AR Warforged AR was also like dreadful to use. So I think the floor loot attachment wise, this season played out a lot better. I also think this season had no real summer content drought. That's something that's been a problem for past season 3s because Epic goes on break during the summer. And during Chapter 3 Season 3 and Chapter 4 Season 3, during that time, the game was very stale and it felt like there was just no content at all. I believe for this season, they put out Reload shortly before their break. So Reload was still fresh and new as their break happened. And so that is a huge benefit, I think, that a lot of people aren't talking about as much, is that like it didn't feel like there was just a 2-week period that was just incredibly boring during this season, in my opinion. I mean, I guess the last few weeks with Magneto have been, but you get what I'm saying. Like the content drought wasn't there. I also think the addition of Reload mode is a very good change. Some people wouldn't count it in this season, but it's my review. I don't care. I enjoy having Reload mode. I think it's a nice change of pace. And I think as it continues to get updates, it's something that can fill those like content drought voids where they just, you know, unvault some old weapons and Reload probably takes no work at all. And it is something fun and fresh to play with. So I'm happy they added this. And I think this is a positive for like the future of Fortnite as well, because the mode isn't going anywhere. Another positive for this season that I think is a good change for the game going forward is going to be the fact that they split ranked and public match loot pools. This should have always been the case. I don't understand why they undid this, because when we had Arena, they got to the point where they had Arena have different loot than pubs, and it made it to where if there was annoying crap in pubs, you could just play Arena and get away from it. And for some reason, when they added ranked in Chapter 4 Season 2, they went back to this idea that pubs and ranked have to have the same loot pool. And I feel like it makes sense to nobody outside of Epic Games. Like, I feel like the overwhelming, like the casual players that loved the start of the season, the people who loved the start of the season would be happy if ranked was different, just so people wouldn't be complaining about the stuff they enjoy being in the game. And then also the people who enjoy ranked don't want the same stuff as pubs because they want to play an actual competitive version of the game. So I feel like having pubs and ranked have split loot pools is a win for everybody. And if that was there from the start of the season, like if ranked didn't have cars or the car mods or any of that stuff, the initial reception to the season, I think, would have been significantly more positive than what it was, because a lot of people, myself included, probably would have just played ranked rather than playing pubs with like how cars were at launch. So I think this is a good change, and it should have always been like this, and it's good that they finally did this. I also think the event that we had at this season would have been incredibly hyped and exciting if it wasn't for the roadmap leak that we got at the start of the year, because one of the big reveals for the event would have been Doctor Doom sabotaging the pipeline and kind of us getting a Marvel season next season. And that would have been very hyped and very exciting because a lot of people like Marvel. And then also Chapter 2 Season 4, the original Marvel season, is one of the most heavily praised Fortnite seasons of all time, especially from like every group of players. Like casual players loved it, sweats players loved it, competitive players loved it. Chapter 2 Season 4 is one of the few Fortnite seasons that seemingly every demographic of player could enjoy. And so having another Marvel season would have been very hyped, and that would have been one of the big reveals from that event. But we got the roadmap leak earlier on in the year, so we already knew we were getting this Marvel season, and so I feel like that reveal didn't hit the same. But I think this event would have been very good if it wasn't for that roadmap leak. As far as cons for the season go, like I've kind of touched on them already, I feel like there's just so much cheese in the season that it made it rarely feel like I was ever playing the game that I want to play. With like the cars at the start of the season, and then the gloves spam, like the melee I don't like, the Magneto, like it just eventually got to the point where, like I said, there's probably 3 fights a game that I'm actually playing Fortnite, and that's unfortunate. And then like you could say just play ranked, and that is true, but ranked is also just, it has its own problems where it plays out very slow. People play campy. It's much laggier for me than public matches are, so it's like it feels like there's no winning one way or the other. So that's unfortunate. And then I feel like also the Nitro medallion was way too good. I'm not a fan of medallions at all, to be honest. But if you guys played the season and you got the Nitro medallion, it felt so bad playing a match out and having the medallion all game and then going to the next game and not having it at all. You just feel so incredibly slow because of that like gap, you know, that difference in how fast you can move. If you just never had if we never had the unlimited sprint medallion, it wouldn't feel as bad because we get used to having the unlimited sprint medallion and then go back to not having it. And so it felt like every game, I personally would rather get the sprint medallion and be able to play the game, or just die off spawn and go next. Like I genuinely did not want to play the game without the Nitro medallion because, like I said, going from having it to not having it just feels so incredibly boring. And then also playing against someone who has it that's just like full running constantly is rough. And one of the things that I think made BR as a genre so exciting and fun was how different every match can play out. And that's why I'm not a fan of the medallions and like the heavy emphasis on mid-match objectives, because it makes every match play way more similar, in my opinion, where like, all right, I gotta land here, get this medallion, and then kind of go somewhere else and probably try to get that medallion as well. And then, oh, now bunkers are opening, I gotta get attachments, now Loot Island is there, I'm gonna go there, and then like the game's basically over at that point, you know? Since like Chapter 5 has felt far more repetitive to me than any Fortnite chapter, and I feel like the medallions play a heavy emphasis on that. That's why I'm not a fan of them as a mechanic. We did get the bosses that go on patrol this season, and so like the place you have to go to for the medallion varies, and I think that was a somewhat good change. But it also created situations where, again, like if you're someone who, like me, who feels like you would rather not play the game than not have the medallion, like going to the medallion on patrol and like fighting with like basically nothing off spawn would just create very hectic situations, and you could just be fighting like 6 people at a boss car with like very little loot off spawn. Like it got kind of crazy, and some people like that. I didn't consider those fights to be enjoyable, and so again, you either opt into these fights you don't want to play to get a medallion that like feels like you don't want to play the game without it. It's just like, I don't know, for me personally, medallions really negatively impact Chapter 5. And so for my final rating of this season, I think I would give it like a 6, maybe a 6.5, because of the addition of reload mode and the split pulls for ranked being a future change that goes forward and is positive for the game. If Magneto never came out, I feel like the season probably would have gotten an 8 from me, because like I said, when the cars got when the cars got nerfed and EMPs came out, was the most fun I've had in Chapter 5 for sure. But Magneto came, and I feel like Magneto's influence just grew as time went on, and yeah, so I would probably give the season like a 6, a 6.5. Launch of the season, maybe a 2 or a 3. My opinion on it was very low, but Epic made a lot of improvements to it, I think, and it became a lot better, even though some things also made it worse. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this interesting, informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like some more, comment down below what you thought of Chapter 5 Season 3 and what you would rate it out of 10, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.